lens with a quote from Variety. So,
that was just for you.
Yes, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm from Variety, and it is my pleasure to sit down with the President and CEO of PBS, Paula Kerger. Paula, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Banff. Yeah, absolutely. So, as Jen said at the beginning, you are now the longest running CEO in the history of PBS.
Hard to believe.
I mean, and as she mentioned, that's no small feat. This is, trying times in the broadcast industry and television in general. So much has changed since you joined back in 2006. The entire landscape has changed. But I want to begin by talking about a study that comes out every year about trust in brands, not just media brands, right? This is just trust in brands in general. And PBS is consistently number one on that list. What does that mean? What do you think that says about PBS and the brand and what you guys are trying to do to sort of instill this level of trust with consumers?
Well, for us, that particular metric is probably the most important, in part because of the way that we're organized and the way that we're funded. So the lion's share of funding that comes into public broadcasting for PBS comes from viewers like you. And
I think you're supposed to say thank you after.
I was getting there. And so, why would people dig down in their pocket and give you money for something that you get for free? Well, obviously, you have to trust that media brand. You have to trust that organization. And so for us, the trust piece is really paramount. And I think that, interestingly, at this time, the trust in the media is more of a topic of conversation than it was when I first came into this job. We pay even more attention to what does that mean to earn trust? Where does it come from? Well, we're different than CBC, we're different than BBC and other international broadcasters in that we're inherently local. We have 330 individual stations. They all have their own governance. Actually, the government money goes to them, it doesn't come to me. And the thing is, what I'm running is actually a network turned upside down. I run, in essence, a co-op. I report to all those stations. We put together a schedule. We maintain the infrastructure that connects them via satellite, via broadband. And, so I would say a lesson in humility, run a federated organization like mine because you have a lot of responsibility, not always ultimate authority. And so this whole trust piece, I think for us comes from the quality of the content, how we pay attention to the work we're doing, but I think it also is because we're local. It is much easier for you to pick on a media organization that is away than it is to pick on a media organization that's in your own backyard. And so I think that has actually helped us tremendously these last years.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people question what is the future of broadcast, what's ultimately going to happen as viewership shifts. Local seems to play a big role in that. The future of broadcast seems to be local. So in some degree, you're ahead of the pack already and having always been very local. And you spend a good chunk of your year traveling from market to market.
I've been to every state except Hawaii. That's just stupidity.
How have you not gone to the Hawaii station? That would be number one on my list.
I know, it should be number one on my list. But the thing is, I'm determined I'm going to get there this year, though it ruins the punchline for me. But I've been to Scranton like 4 times, and that was before The Office became popular. But I think that look, we compete with a lot of media organizations. We are in a different business. I think, because we approach the work that we do with different objectives. We just happen to use the same tools as everyone else. But being local does make us different than Netflix and Amazon and a lot of other media providers that really it is not their business to be local and it is ours. And so, we produce locally, but we also take big national ideas and then figure out how to really blow them out locally. That's what the Great American Read, which was on that reel, is all about.
And you come from local, obviously, from WNET in New York.
Yeah, it doesn't quite count because it's New York City, which is an island off of the coast of North America, but close enough.
Close enough, yeah. But nonetheless, what did you find when you first arrived at the actual PBS.
At the mothership?
At the mothership. And, again, longest running, CEO there. So obviously you found a way to make it work. And what did you find, and what were some of the first things that you thought needed to change to keep this organization sustainable?
Yeah, so when I took the job, and actually I didn't really want to take this job. I loved the work that I was doing in New York. We produced a lot of content for the national system, so we had a national role as well as we were New York's public broadcasting station, and Channel 13, which was my station, is even, it's in lyrics of songs. I mean, it was part of the culture of New York in a way that was very exciting and meaningful. Moving to PBS, I knew that it would be different. I wouldn't be working as closely with people in the community, which is what we did in New York. But I also, I agreed to take the job because my predecessors, who were all terrific media executives, didn't understand the membership piece as well as I did because I lived it. And PBS at that time was really struggling to figure out really what does it mean to be a media organization that is both local and national. And there was a lot of tension against one versus the other, and it's not unusual if you are if you work in any federated type of organization like this, there's always a natural friction between you don't really understand us, and that goes both sides. If you sit in the national seat, you have a different purview than if you're operating at the local level. And a lot of what bridges that is really the ability to talk and speak in a common language. And so I had the experience. I could say, look, I've walked in your shoes. It's why I travel the country so much. You don't really see it unless you see it. And a friend of mine once said, so much of life is just showing up. And so I would go to small communities, large communities, talk to the people in the station, I talk to the community, to figure out what public media should actually be like. And the investment, I think, I wish I was so brilliant that I'd thought through in a grand design way how I was going to build my career at PBS. But it just felt like the way for me to understand how to do the business. Little did I know how important that was going to be, because the world shifted while I was there. First, you had the economic downturn in 2008. I took this job in 2006. So I was barely there, and suddenly, all of our revenue possibilities were threatened. The second thing that happened is what we're all living through now, which is, I think, an extremely exciting time, but not for the faint of heart, which is my first speech as president of PBS. I talked about the fact that Apple was going to sell through iTunes episodes of Desperate Housewives, This Brings You Back, for $1.99. And it just felt like the weirdest idea. Netflix, of course, was still sending you discs in the mail. They were getting ready to go through their enormous friction between the streaming versus, and it's just the whole world was different. All of what are now the big media organizations were really not the organizations I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. And for us to be able to make the change, for me to be able to sit in a room of my station general managers and say, you know what, you're not going to control how people see your content anymore. It's not always going to come through that signal that you're putting out through your transmitter or that's getting fed to the cable service. They may be watching you on many of the array of over-the-top devices. And we're going to have to figure this out together, because you're not going to build it 335 times. We're going to build it once and hope that we can actually make a deal with some of these companies so that your stuff is there. But if we do it and we do it right, we'll build an architecture so that we're sharing our national content. This was, the reel you saw was this pastures content, as well as the local content that you're creating. And that's what we set out to do, and you can only do that through the trust that you build by showing up, by traveling the country, and by having lots of conversations, and being able to look at you and say, I walked in your shoes, I know exactly what you're wrestling with, but this is how we have to get there.
You know who has some great ideas? The folks at PBS Hawaii. You should go check them out.
I'll tell you, they have this project called Hikino, which is, they have kids, and some of them are as young as middle school, that are doing journalism reporting that is connecting stories from across all of the islands. So the fact that I haven't been there, plus we have amazing independent producers in Hawaii, it is so stupid I have not been to Hawaii. Next time we sit down together, first question you should ask is, have you been to Hawaii? Hopefully I'm going to answer you.
That'll be question.
Yeah, but I'm not going in July or August. I really want to go in January.
Yeah, smart.
I'm also not completely stupid.
Well, for those of us who cover PBS and public broadcasting in general, of course, question number one is always the funding issue. And that's something that, even though, as you mentioned, the money goes to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, it's not PBS, but PBS is the face to a lot of people, for most people, of public broadcasting. So you were thrust front and center of those debates. And it's never ending. Every year, it feels like it's the same struggle, the same debate over funding. Ultimately, things seem to work out, but nonetheless, every year it's the same thing. Have to go back and sort of reassert, re-explain, why public broadcasting is valuable, all the things that you have to do year after year. Does that get tiring? What is the state of things now? Do you feel like you're through the woods again, or is this just an ongoing struggle?
I was happy when I woke up this morning and saw the mountains. You're depressing me all over again. So it is frustrating, and not every year have we gone through this battle, but many years, and under this administration, we've been zeroed out every year. Not to give you all a civics lesson on how money flows through our federal government in the United States, but